You're listening to Disrobing the Moshpit, a dissection of music and popular culture, with your hosts, Pete and Tom.
Well, welcome to the inaugural episode of Disrobing the Moshpit, the new podcast about music and what makes music something that is worth listening to, and what makes us feel things when we listen to music. My name is Tom. I'm one of the hosts. I'm one of the hosts. Over here we have
Pete. It's I don't even know what to say, really. Well, I'm terrible. I'm terrible at this sort of thing.
Well, Pete and I are good friends who met a long time ago, and we both love music, and we both love all kinds of things about music, and we thought it would be a good idea to talk about why into the microphone to record it, because we always end up saying funny stuff or having a laugh talking about stuff anyway.
It's certainly always the sort of conversations that you sort of have, and you just want to sort of put them down. Maybe not for everyone, but certainly for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's sort of a little personal project.
And it's a great excuse to have a few drinks and I think to relax in some winter evenings and just listen to some cool tunes and enjoy some, like I said, some whiskey and some good company.
Nice.
So,
well, tell me a bit about yourself there, Tom.
Well, I'm a musician like you. I think I started back in the day. I'm from a musical family and I guess a classical background. And then I guess I moved on to heavier and more aggressive things in secondary school. Started playing drums, started listening to heavy metal. And I'm a drummer, really, but I do a lot of different kinds of music work these days. Commercial composition. I teach at a polytech here. So I'm also, I would say, kind of like, I'm a researcher and I'm an academic and also a musician and a producer as well.
Nice.
Long and short. I'm sure that lots of the other little things that both you and I do will come out along, in other kinds of episodes. Maybe there are some things that will be nice to leave to those episodes as well.
Yeah. This could go off in many, many tangents.
Yeah, I think so. So we were kind of thinking that we'd kick off this thing. Actually, let me talk a little bit about how Pete came up with the idea. It's kind of a funny story because both Pete and I love the movie Kickboxer. It's a classic one. This is funny because I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day as well, and he was like, Bloodsport was his movie. But the movie Kickboxer, and it's got the most hilarious soundtrack, and I think Pete sent me a Spotify link to it, and it was hilarious to one of the tracks on there, which led me to look at the original soundtrack on Spotify while I was in the checkout at Pack and Save. And as I looked down to it, the phone, one of the tracks that I recognized was called Groceries. And I just thought it was uncanny because I was standing in the checkout queue waiting for the groceries. And I got to thinking, I suppose, that it's just little stories like that. Isn't it interesting how I guess we both kind of connected to this random thing? It's not like he's like a big pop star who's you got posters of on your wall, but the guy who composed that stuff, I mean, he's obviously gotten so many people's heads and affected the way that so many people feel when they watch that movie. But he's just this kind of like silent, like, on the down low film composer, like a lot of these guys are.
Well, certainly with the movie like Kickboxer as well. It's not exactly enormously mainstream, I would say. I mean, would you agree that was enormously mainstream?
Kickboxer. I think it was like
it's certainly formative.
Yeah, and it's got a cult following.
Yeah, totally,
I reckon. But it's not. Yeah, no, it's no. It's no. I can't see Daniel Day-Lewis. Putting his hand up to act in the sequel.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's not winning an Oscar for his performances.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But that's the thing that's crazy, because they get this. They have this special thing about them, which is this music, and it's something that sort of stays with you. And as soon as because I was talking to a few people about this as well after that experience, and some movies that you think are quite obscure, you start humming this, the theme for it, and then people immediately go, oh, that's right, that one there. I mean, I think I was doing this theme from Bloodsport or Kickboxer or I can't remember which film it was, just singing it to someone and they just immediately recognized the movie. Oh my God, that's it. That's the movie. I think it was from Kickboxer. It was that ding, 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 which is the theme. And people just immediately sort of like, pipe up and go, oh, yeah. It's just one of those things that I think like gets locked away in the recesses of our brains. This like everyone's got, I think, a special facility for connecting with music in film and screen indirectly, because there are no lyrics. So I kind of feel like everyone's got this little pocket in their head that they kind of, this kind of subconscious memory that you sort of keep saved for the music that goes along with visual experiences, kind of like that.
Do you reckon that's also why you are kind of, to a certain degree, drawn to watching movies over and over again? Because I, for one, am one that just, I'll constantly watch the same movies over and over again. My wife, Evelyn, would always like say, I can't understand how you can watch these over and over again. But there's just something about them, and I don't know whether it's just an emotional connection with music or whether it's the film itself, probably a combo of the two, that sort of draws you back. It's like they've sort of like an awoken an emotion in you that you really like, and you want to just keep revisiting it. It's like a heroin, a drug, as if it were.
Totally, and it's kind of like I kind of was the one interesting movie that I think this came up with, and actually this came up with a conversation the other day. Again, I was talking about it with someone, and they brought up two movies in particular where the soundtracks were real key. Maybe it's to do with the age that we were at the time, but one of them was Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yes,
Mortal Kombat.
I love that.
And one of them was Blade. That boom.
Oh yes, is that the one where they go into the slaughterhouse? Oh, and they go into that
dance,
the nightclubby kind of
vampire rave.
That's right. And they get sprayed with blood. Amazing.
Yeah. I think that soundtrack. There's one scene from that where I think it's like Tracy Lords.
Oh yeah,
controversial character. Tracy Lords. She's kind of like walking along this pool at this party, like a chill after party. After a certain scene, and there's a track in there which was like a sampled drum beat, and it's DJ Crush. And I think I must have been about 16 or something when that movie came out. And based on that one scene, I went and bought that album.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually still got it in a couple of playlists, that DJ Crush.
Is it tape or CD?
It was CD. It was CD. Yeah. Nice. I do have one tape, actually. That's a different story for another day. Someone gave it to me for a present sitting over
recently?
There. Yeah.
Oh,
recently.
Really?
Yeah.
But hard to play a tape now.
Yeah. It's never going to get played. I don't think I've opened the cassette.
Oh, really? Like what? Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's like a collector's item.
A friend of mine found it in a garage sale and he gave it to me.
Nice.
Yeah. My mate.
Was it not Trauma, was it?
No, it was Jean-Michel Jarre. Because, and this is actually still pretty, this goes back to it because actually I guess this does connect to it. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with dinosaurs and I was also obsessed with David Attenborough. And he had that show, it was 80s, ran through the 80s, Our World.
There was I remember that.
Yeah, Our World. Yes. And the theme song was this. It was this kind of synth thing. And the guy who composed it was called Jean-Michel Jarre. And the piece was called Oxygen. And that guy, Jean-Michel Jarre, he did this like legendary gig where he projected all this stuff onto the pyramids.
Oh.
I think it might have been in 1990. I think it might have been the turn of the millennium that he did that.
I kind of remember seeing something about that.
Yeah. But he started back in the day when like synthesizers took up entire rooms to get this, like way back in the day, where you basically had to be like of royal lineage to be able to afford it, probably. Yeah. But this friend of mine found a cassette of that album after we'd sort of spoken about it, and he got it for me for a present. It's a great present, man.
That's an amazing
bloody
present.
Good. Yeah. Because
amazing they had presence of mind to even like go, Tom would love this.
Yeah,
he would love this.
Yeah, just found it.
Who else would
Totally.
like go? Oh, Jean-Michel Jarre. Yeah. I love this.
Oh,
this
totally.
Is amazing. This is amazing shit.
God knows how he came across that. It was like a total fluke.
That's awesome.
Total fluke. Awesome. So, what about your background with music, Pete?
My background's probably not quite as professional, shall we say, as Tom's. Obviously, play a bit of music, or used to. Still kind of do on the side. I went all through school playing guitar, piano and guitar, saxophone, which I sold reasonably recently for money. But I know, a bit sad. I didn't even buy it, but I sold it. And so I did classical guitar all through school, and then had bands all through school as well. Went through Rock Quest, like the standard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of always going in and out with music as a sort of, well, I won't say career, but certainly as a thing that I love doing. Tom and I played together in a covers band reasonably recently in the last few years, which is still going, which is quite good. And
that's going to be a good episode.
the pure.
That's going to be a good podcast episode. Yeah,
yeah.
The covers stories. Yeah.
So in a way, I'm not qualified in the same way. I guess in terms of music, I would say I was layman who's done a little bit of performing. How's that?
I think it's an epic perspective, to be honest. I've kind of always been of the mind that people who don't think about the technicalities so much of music, but instead kind of think about how it makes them feel, like literally everyone's qualified for that,
Totally.
from the youngest toddler to the oldest person. And it's kind of it's a difficult one because, sometimes we talk about that in classrooms where students will say something like, "Oh, that's shit, I don't like that. Oh, I can't stand that." And you sort of go, "Well, how do you qualify it like that? You think this is bad music, so why do you think it's bad? Oh, well, it's derivative. It's kind of too basic. It's too..." And then you're like, but you put it on for toddlers and they start dancing. And I think when you get to the bottom part of it, when you get to the crux of the thing, what we're talking about, connecting emotionally with music in film, we're trying to.
Yeah. We'll get there.
It just happens at a base level for everyone.
Totally.
So it's kind of, when you're the same as well. When you write music like that as well, it's kind of actually a really valuable perspective, getting one from someone who's not a technical, doesn't really know what's under the hood kind of thing, but just get this base kind of this instinctive kind of, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It makes me want to dance.
And just a little disclaimer here. Tom's mum was my teacher in high school for music.
And mine.
And she pulled her hair out for the lack of dedication I showed to certainly music theory. There's the anecdote I always have about that is when I was sitting my grade 7 classical guitar exam and I'd pretty much given it away. I was like, I was rebelling, no, into rock, classic rubbish. And your mum made me come round to your place and practice.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Practice. I passed, actually, thanks to your mum, and that would never have happened.
Welcome to my world. Every single time I had an exam, it was basically me sitting there crying with my cello going,
and what an instrument to be playing as well.
Oh, my God.
That really conveys it.
Yeah, it wasn't too long till I decided, I think, that playing the cello competitively, as it were, trying to do it really well was kind of not something that I was really into.
Let's be honest, you had a picture of Yo-Yo Ma.
Yo-Yo Ma, yeah.
Behind your door.
Oh, yeah. You must play exactly like Yo-Yo Ma.
Flutter the Bumblebee, I mean.
Yeah, I think it was kind of I don't know how, maybe that's something to do with the old rebellion with going with drums and heavy metal, I'm not so sure. But yeah, well, we do have some people to talk about some actual kind of topics here.
Well, certainly, going back to what you were saying before, the emotion of music in movies, and when you were looking back to olden times, no talking whatsoever and just pure music. So the only way they could really convey what was happening in a scene, I think Charlie Chaplin sort of type movies, just the music, how it's toned, generally piano, or would often just be piano.
Yeah.
And, that would be ramping up for exciting moments or sad for sad moments and et cetera, et cetera. But, without any sort of speech or without any sort of, any background, I guess, the music sort of holding it all together and holding the emotional side of movies together, or the movie together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of I always kind of feel like it's a bit of a wasted opportunity when I think people have recognized that for so long, that the music is accompanying the visuals and giving so much more depth to them, that I always kind of feel like it's a shame when you have films where it's obviously a really big budget, but it's sort of homogenous sounding.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
it's always so nice when you get these films where the composer's taken like a real off-center approach, I guess.
They tend to be the most memorable, though.
Totally. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing with kickboxing, you know, because like this guy, so his name we discovered was
Paul Herzog.
Paul Herzog. Yep.
Yeah.
Who also did quite a bunch of other things.
So what? I don't even know what else he's done.
We can look that up
We can Google this
right now.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
but pretty much one thing that it reminded me of straight away was the musical Chess that it kind of reminds me of, because it seems to be
Is it the real 80s movie? Or you're talking about Chess the game?
no Chess the musical.
Oh, the musical.
You know,
Yes.
one night in Bangkok and the world your oyster.
Surely he's taken inspiration from that sort of thing. Or do you reckon he was before or was Chess before?
He's got to have been around the same time. They've got to have been. It's so close, like it's so similar. But evidently, that guy did. Interestingly enough, kickboxer and Bloodsport,
Oh, really?
and another one called Freeing the Waters.
Do you think he just heard that Jean-Claude Van Damme was in the movie? That I'm drawn to this project immediately. It's like Nolan, Christopher Nolan always like has
Hans Zimmer, yeah,
it always has Michael Caine
Oh,
and Hans Zimmer. Yeah.
totally, yeah.
Michael Caine's in this movie. I'm
Tim
definitely
Burton's
busy.
like, what's that? Who is that comedian that said Johnny Depp, the man who will wear literally anything Tim Burton asks him to?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Because
that's a really
is
good
Johnny
point.
Depp in a lot of Tim Burton movies,
Oh,
or is it just
totally.
Edward Scissorhands?
No, and heaps of stuff.
Really?
Yeah, like what's that one? The Shadows, something.
Did Tim Burton do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And that was the one that Johnny Depp was in as well.
Don't
Yeah,
know
I mean
how feel
Tim
about that.
Tim Burton. I'm not sure who he uses to score his stuff as well. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of these directors who are really kind of well known, they do stick with this one kind of, or I feel like part of their approach is part of the reason they are so well known is because they have paid so much attention to music and that kind of thing as well. I was thinking of like Eyes Wide Shut. I do that every day.
Stanley
But-
Kubrick.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you know, that's a real classic
Are
one.
you talking about what happens in your life is like Eyes Wide Shut? Which is a bit saucy.
That'd be nice. no, I kind of, because the music there, it's like this, like real minimalist. I don't know when the last time you watched it was, but like
I
in
don't
all
think
those.
I've ever seen it.
Well, you should check it out.
Maybe
because
it's just too sexy for me.
it's pretty sexy.
I used to build an anti-romance hut
Yeah.
when I was a kid because I didn't want to watch any kissing on TV or movies. My parents still give me shit about it now.
Anti-romance heart.
Anti-romance hut. It was basically 3 pillows, you know, like 3 couch cushions, and they like built into like a kind of a square.
That's
like
amazing. Anti-romance
the
heart. That's
obelisk
awesome.
that I'd stick my head in, so I wouldn't have to watch kissing on screen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, in Eyes Wide Shut, there's kind of like, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that goes on, but pretty much the soundtrack is this like semitone thing, like Jaws, ding, 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 and then it goes up an octave, dee, 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 dee. And Jaws, of course, has got the strings, judin, 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 judin. So it's kind
Cello.
of like using that same kind of like semitone kind of, I guess, real discordant kind of thing as a tension builder.
But that's a good point you make with Jaws.
Mm.
Like how well known and emotive that particular soundtrack is, or not even the soundtrack necessarily, just that little bit that John Williams wrote.
Possibly one of the most basic things you could think of, short of just playing one note,
Iconic, eh?
because it's the closest note. It's like one semitone. So
How
it's
is
just-
that so ominous, though?
Well, I think that if you sort of break it down, I reckon, you know, you have like a major sounding chord and it just clashes in people's heads. I don't know, maybe it's a Western construct as well. The whole like that semitone being a clash that just doesn't sound good.
It's incredible, though, how that, I mean, it's so amazingly intertwined now with Jaws, right? Because you play that song, you'd be in a swimming pool, you're scared shitless, you want to get out. I mean, I used to remember going swimming or swim training. I used to be a swimmer back in the day. And you know, that would come in my head. I'd be so scared. I was in a pool, like freaking out. There's going to be a shark in here. I want to get out.
Yeah.
But But it's just because effectively, I mean, I'm not thinking the movie, I'm thinking that theme, and I'm like totally scared.
Yeah.
It's incredible. How I mean, I don't even know how that even works.
You know, I was watching an interesting thing as well about like Hans Zimmer, just going back to him with the Christopher Nolan thing, and how he was getting the theme for the Joker when it was Heath Ledger when he was doing that one. And it's basically like he puts so much, they put so much value in the intention of the performance. I mean, because these guys have got like all the gear in the world, and they've got like all the access to these amazing players and that kind of stuff. So I guess they're kind of looking for this infinitely small X factor with the performance. So they're kind of like saying, and you know, Hans Zimmer saying like, you know, basically it's not going to work unless the person is thinking like the Joker thinks when they're performing this thing. And he got this cellist in and he got them to try all this freaky stuff. And at the end of it, he was like, apparently Chris Nolan was like, I need this theme for the Joker. Can you just like give me some stuff? And Hans Zimmer just went nuts, I guess, like maybe getting into the head of this guy, trying to get performers to get into this head of this guy. And then he gave Christopher Nolan this series of something like 400 minutes of sound samples. And Chris Nolan was saying that he listened to it on like a flight from Tokyo to London or something like that. And at the end of it, he was just kind of like shaking and just like, just kind of like, you know, I feel like you've got it. I just don't know where it is.
It's like method acting for musicians.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, when you think about it, it's kind of like they have the luxury of saying like, I guess we have the budget and the studio and the gear where let's just make it so everything is covered. And I guess they hear it if they hear the difference between someone thinking about doing their taxes and playing the Joker theme, or someone who's thinking about, you know, robbing a bank and shooting people and playing the Joker's theme. I guess they can hear the difference. That's what they it's very important for them, that whole like getting to the head of that kind of person. So I wonder, going back to the Jaws thing, I wonder what John Williams, I can like when I saw that and I was thinking about the Jaws thing, and I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe he just like sat in the bathtub for a while, like strapped on a shark fin, just like with some raw meat in his
private
mouth.
is their own business. So.
Got a photo of like Rob Schneider. Is it Rob Schneider?
Rob Schneider. Was it Rob Schneider?
Oh, Roy Schneider?
Roy, I think it's Roy.
Is
Rob Schneider the guy from Juice Bigelow?
Yes.
Male Gigolo.
Yeah. That's
Quite different actors.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Roy Schneider's the man, eh?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not getting into the mind of a shark, but certainly like the psyche of humans. Like how do you understand what makes people tick, and how do you convey that in a musical sense? I mean, another classic is I don't know, if you're going John Williams, like Star Wars, and you know the main opening, and the space rockets going through space and this sort of stuff like that. But now they're sort of like so amazingly intertwined. But it would have been perfect even at the time. I mean, I wasn't around in 1977, so I never saw Star Wars come out in the movies.
Yeah,
but I could imagine that impact would have been as brutal then, or as amazing then as it is now. Like if you'd never watched Star Wars before and you watched that and that main theme came on and there it is, the space ships going through space, and
just that big fanfare, eh? Yeah, I mean that's kind of like, I wonder where he was sort of saying, look, this is like a fanfare that you might have, I mean, it wouldn't have sounded the same, but like you can see like Julius Caesar like doing like a victory lap. This is something from many, many hundreds of years ago, like ancient civilization, and I'm applying it to this sci-fi, to an alternate kind of universe kind of thing.
Well, it's so grand as well, eh? And I guess that sort of plays into the whole space element, you know, being so enormous and it's so jam-packed with instruments. Yeah, it's a full orchestra and it's just going full on. Like,
oh, man. Well, you know what? I guess he was trying to communicate this expanse with that part. But what's really fascinating about that is that all of those themes that John Williams did for that, you know, there's the I think it's the Ewok one that might be like, and there's obviously the
Darth Vader. That's a classic one.
Yeah.
Man. The Imperial March.
Yeah, and then there's that like the Emperor that that like that real sort of crazy one, and then there's like R2D2's kind of theme, and then Luke's kind of planet theme, and all these crazy Hoth, the Hoth battle theme as well.
He's got such a body of work, hasn't John Williams? Like,
it's
massive,
epic. It's epic.
You pretty much think of any sort of like, I mean, Spielberg and John Williams, like
they were tight.
E.T.
For sure.
E.T.'s a
man,
amazing.
Unbelievable.
I think just a bike going through the sky.
Yeah, he was like, I mean, the imprint that John Williams must have had on those 80s minds like ours. It's kind of, I wonder how much that influence has been exploited by marketing companies,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot.
I mean, there'd be so many rip-offs. Like,
Yeah.
you're selling like, I don't know, oven fries or something. You'd be like this fry going through space and you're using like a John Williams-esque.
Just something similar.
That's
You
totally
just
made me want to eat that.
You're just like, God, I'm connecting with that fry. Oh, man. Yeah. That fry just reminds me of my childhood.
Well, what else? He's got like heaps of other ones, isn't he? Oh, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
And did he do Superman too? Like, I guess
I think he
Superman?
did. Yeah.
All those 80s ones were just the like instantly recognizable.
But then again, talking about the emotion of music, we were talking about the 80s. Both of us were kids in the 80s, I was born in 81. So, any time between that and 1990, so incredibly, I don't know, like those sort of years really sort of like, you can really feel the time. I don't know, am I being weird saying that? I can really feel the 80s. Like if you see something very 80s-ish now, like I get huge pangs of nostalgia, even though I would have been 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I guess in the same way, the John Williams stuff, that sort of taps into that sort of time in your life that you watch the movie and you feel that. So every time you sort of hear it now, it sort of springs that sort of emotion in you too.
Yeah, definitely.
Of nostalgia.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And like I was saying before, like that's one of the more well-known ones. Half the time when for me it sort of goes hand in hand, the music with the imagery. So half the time you don't actually realize that's happened. I mean, Star Wars, it's obvious because it's so popular, but there are some films when I watch them again, I'm like, that happened recently with like a not super obscure, but kind of obscure 80s movie called Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer.
Is that the guy? Oh, yes, the blind dude that was karate.
Yeah, well, he had like a kempo sword.
There's a theme developing here, Tom. There's a lot of martial arts.
Yeah, a lot of martial arts movies. Yeah,
there's Mortal Kombat, Kickboxer, Bloodsport.
Yeah, just like
Fury.
badasses. But he was also in Blade Runner. And that's like that defined
that's
that
right,
movie.
too.
That whole synth approach.
Well, that's an amazing soundtrack in itself.
Oh yeah.
How barren does that sound? That soundtrack.
Oh man,
I think they did quite a sympathetic job with the newest movie too.
Yeah,
sort of keeping quite true to that sort of very sort of Spartan, sort of desolate, utopian kind of theme.
Totally. That's actually, there was a guy engaged, and I might be wrong here. If I'm wrong, we'll take it out. But
we can edit this later.
But I'm pretty sure that he did. One of my favorite film composers, who sadly died not that long ago, quite young, like 45, called Johan Johansson, Icelandic guy, and he was engaged to play. To compose for Blade Runner, and for whatever reason, it sort of got held up, and they had to get another guy to come in
Vangelis. Vangelis, I think.
Did
the music for Blade Runner.
Yeah. So they had to get him to come in because, and I'll have to look that up kind of later on. But Johan Johansson, he did the music for that film, The Arrival, which was
Charlie Sheen?
Amy Adams.
Oh,
yeah. And she's like...
That's really spooky too.
That's epic. And I've got a real interesting story about that one as well. Because I know the guy that did some of the sound design who works at Park Row Post. Have I told you this before?
No.
Okay, well, you know how there's the aliens. Well, firstly, with Johan Johansson, one thing that's amazing with that is that the movie's about language, and then a lot of it, like the human voice, features quite a lot. And it's kind of like... like inaudible. Well, no, it's you can't make out the language. It's not really a language. He sort of goes like no, like that kind of stuff for like Halloween, like is that Halloween? Actually, yeah, is that Halloween? Is that Mike? Was that Friday the 13th?
Again, are we going very 80s? Freddy Krueger,
80s horror, yeah. But yeah, so he that's a really amazing one as well to check out because he's a really well-known contemporary composer who sadly is no longer with us. But with that film, this is more to do with the soundtrack. But the sound of the aliens talking, and like whoa, and so going in the background and bit of saliva kind of noises going. Yeah, it's
so
good.
you're listening to headphones. Awful.
Well, they had this. They had this great sound, I guess, and that'd be something, because as a sound designer, when I guess you're like, okay, well, this is an otherworldly sound that we want here. And I know the guy, Dave Whitehead, who had sort of a part of doing that. And apparently he was struggling with the sound design for it. And he ended up using, this may have been like romanticized a little bit, but apparently he was like on his deck in Wellington in, I think it was Strathmore maybe, or maybe Brooklyn, and heard a tui and decided to sample a tui, and the sound of the aliens talking is like a really slowed down and affected tui.
That's amazing.
Crazy, yeah.
That's in the movie Arrival.
Yeah, layered with other stuff as well, of course, but that's like the basis, I guess, like a perfume or something, like that's the
base note. There's a tui slowed down.
Yeah.
I love that though. That's awesome.
When you think about it, like, a waveform looks like a waveform, but it's like, oh my God, it just sounds so, have you found that unique sound that he's after from like a bird song that was kind of, slowed down? I don't know. There's just this endless variety, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, which is a great one. What was I going to say? What is interesting is that that guy Paul Herzog that did Kickboxer also did Bloodsport, which seems to be with guys of our vintage. Because you're talking about watching it a number of times. I watched that movie, like I can now like verbatim name all of the, quote it like, totally verbatim.
I reckon everyone does that though, whether or not they admit it.
Yeah, surely.
I'm only generalizing here, but in all honesty, there's something that it's certainly a movie or a series that you all keep going back to. For what reason? What do you think? Like,
well, my wife doesn't like to do it. I think
neither does mine.
Yeah, well, she sort of feels
my wife falls asleep during movies.
We tried it recently with Penny Dreadful because like that's quite gothic, quite cool music. And I was kind of getting into it again, and she was like, "Nah, it's not the same because you know what's coming. You anticipate it, and the feelings that you feel the first time, she doesn't get a kick out of feeling again. I guess it's kind of like chewing a already chewed piece of gum or something.
That's delicious though. For me, I'd go back there again and again.
Yeah, I guess for her it kind of feels like that.
I don't know if I like that analogy for the amount of times I watch movies over and over again.
Yeah, I know.
It's turned to mush at this point.
But I've seen so many over and over again. I don't know about you, but these days not really so much though, eh?
No. I'm a bit of a closet obsessive when it comes to that sort of thing. There's certainly movies that I just thrash to bits. And I go through phases of thrashing.
Yeah.
Like Interstellar, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, and Inception. Like I just watch them flat out. Like that's a classic as well. I mean, if we're comparing the emotive qualities of Star Wars and then we've got Interstellar, I mean, they're completely different storylines, but still set in space, effectively.
Yeah.
Quite different music, eh?
Yeah, well,
grandiose.
Yeah, well, I guess because that's Hans Zimmer as well, eh?
Yeah,
and I guess like with the John Williams stuff with Star Wars, it kind of feels like there's entirely different approaches for each setting. We sort of talked about before.
More orchestral, right?
Yeah, way more. And I think Hans Zimmer is a little bit more sound designy with his kind of approach as well. I think for the main themes, he's pretty orchestral, pretty big sounding. But certainly when it comes to character motifs and that kind of stuff, like I feel like John Williams with character motifs was like a whole other, symphony.
Mm.
But with Hans Zimmer, it might be like one solo instrument or something like that, or the way that something's affected.
Well, if we go back to that Interstellar movie, obviously set in space and very grandiose, but the main instrument, from what I can gather, is a giant pipe organ.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's interesting.
And like quite a lot of reverb on it, so it's very echoey, quite haunting, very grand.
Ah, that's awesome. It's interesting because there are so many tools for doing this amazing soundtrack stuff these days that sometimes it's this whole unique thing that people go for to such lengths to get. And a good example of that in a similar vein is the soundtrack to The Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah.
So the soundtrack to The Mandalorian was done by this young guy who produced for, it may have been Kendrick, but he wrote the music for Tenet as well. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Tenet?
Yep.
I still can't quite get my head around it. I've probably watched it 5 times.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought
So
it was
good.
awesome. Yeah.
But the soundtrack's immense in it.
Yeah.
It's so tension
That's also good. Yeah. It's all about that tension, that tension and release. And totally. Oh, yeah.
That one?
And how much, I guess, of the narrative and the story you can pick up with that one. I feel like that with Jaws. It's kind of like a Doppler effect. Heartbeat Doppler. This thing's getting closer. But with The Mandalorian, like, there's a breakdown of him doing that on YouTube. And it's like a bass recorder. Because you've watched The Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
So it's and he plays it with a bass recorder. You're like, oh, that's right. That's totally what it is. But that's the cool thing about it, because he didn't sort of go and get a $2,000 sample pack from something. He was just like, what? I feel like it's in this room somewhere, and it's up to me to kind of find it. No one else is going to have this sound anywhere. It's in this room. I'm going to find it, and this will be the sound of The Mandalorian. And he nailed it, eh?
Amazing when you think about that bass recorder. It sounds like a desolate desert.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And if you heard it now, you'd be like, I could just like look out to the distance and think, oh, desolate desert. Yeah, totally. Like it fully pulls the emotive string, like the incredible.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, he's got the solo instrument. When you have a solo instrument doing music like that, creates this isolation. Maybe that's the thing with Jaws as well. This
Do you think, as humans, we sort of, obviously we're very social beings, and I'm no psychologist, and this is all very layman terms and very personal opinion in a lot of cases. But we sort of always, I personally, like to have that feeling of isolation, whether or not, going into the bush, for example, as a way of physically doing it. But music has that sort of way of giving it to you mentally. If you can listen to something like The Mandalorian, for example, close your eyes, you're isolated. It's very isolating.
Totally.
But the isolation's almost comforting.
Yeah, I love the feeling of being isolated. It's a really cool thing.
But it's like without having the physical effort of climbing or walking 4 hours into the bush to go and camp under a tree. You can do it in your living room with your headphones on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's that's an interesting one for sure. I feel like some composers are better at doing that than others, when it comes to just like getting that kind of, there's all these emotions that come through, like isolation, helplessness. I guess some composers are better at doing that than others with less. That's the aim, I think, is to be as minimal as possible to convey those things. So like with the Jaws thing, he nailed it, tension,
Completely.
this racing heartbeat thing, isolation, vulnerability, being scared, feeling like you're at the bottom of the food chain. It's like, oh my God, no one's close because the nearest person is miles away on land, and there's a big shark between you and everything else. So it's kind of like that's like this. All that is packed into those two little notes.
It's sort of like the movie and the soundtrack are enabling a form of escapism. I mean, that's obviously what they do. Like when you watch a movie, generally it's for escapism. You dim the lights. You don't want to see anything that's in your lounge. Yeah, and the movie just is a good vehicle for that, I guess. Yeah. And then I guess after the fact, you can listen to the soundtrack, and it brings you back to that sense of escapism, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's like your brain automatically connects, like your right and left eyes are sort of sorted out in your head. Maybe your brain does that subconsciously with the screen that you've kind of pocketed away as well, with the images that you've seen. Yeah, when you listen to the soundtrack, it's a good idea to bring it back. So I think it's a good way of kind of bringing that back. So I think it's actually, one thing this might have prompted for me is actually going back and revisiting soundtracks, talking about doing this. And just like one thing I've been amazed is at the level of production with them as well. Like that Kickboxer one, the level of production is just mental.
Yeah.
But I think if I was going to kind of like leave anything, give anything, well, I guess have a sort of punchline for this, for me personally, tonight, I think it would probably be something along the lines of maybe go investigate some soundtracks. Go investigate some of the original scores of the movies that you kind of know pretty well but never really paid much attention to the music, and maybe think about listening to it with your eyes closed and see how it makes you feel. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we don't often think of doing that, eh?
No, because they're so amazingly intertwined, aren't they, really? But you're right. It'd be very interesting to, not that I've done this, but, oh, no, I have done this, but I'm not saying like I haven't done this in preparation for this particular podcast, but like looked up who's written what and actually had a good listen to it with my eyes closed and really sort of putting myself in the scene, not in the movie scene, but just in the general feeling of the scene, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it was a nice ride, actually. It was a nice ride looking up that Paul Herzog and then going and listening.
Well, you
back
texted
through
me at the
some of
time
those
saying, this is ironic, but I'm in Pack and Save buying groceries and the song Groceries has just come on by Paul Herzog from the Kickboxer soundtrack.
Yeah. And the Bloodsport one as well. And just, I think it's worth sort of going back and having a good listen to those, eh? I reckon it's just good to be thinking about, while you're watching a film, I think you should think about maybe what the composer has been running through their heads while they were doing it. It's the kind of thing where I suppose you might have a meal and it's the best meal that you've had, and there's like this sauce in there and you're like, yum, great sauce, whatever. But I guess it's like you're kind of thinking, taking a step back and really trying to taste what makes that sauce special. So I think that maybe it's we all owe it to ourselves to do that with the next film that we're watching, or start to make a habit of it, is to, I guess, really think like, what's going on behind this music, because it's contributing a lot. What are the instruments? What's the subtext of the instruments? Like, is there a voice in there? Like, what's the voice communicating? Like, what kind of effects are in this music that's putting me in this kind of space? Is it making me feel like I want to run, or does it making me feel like I, miss my mum or something like that? So yeah, I think that'd be a good thing that I feel like that I to want to leave people with. I guess maybe take a step back and try to analyze that a little bit more. I think don't be afraid of analyzing it, because it won't make you enjoy it less. Often people kind of make the assumption that, oh no, I don't want to overthink about music like that, because then I won't kind of like feel it. But you do.
Well, it's like any song, really. If you thrash the hell out of it, it does definitely dull it for you. I mean, I'm not talking about analysing it. It's just more in a case of just listening and enjoying it. Yeah, you thrash it, the song starts to lose its emotive quality too. But I guess that's one beauty about the sort of the music of movies, because the movies are very generational, and certainly through your formative years. It's a way of escapism, back in time, I guess. Well, that's the way I feel about it anyway. Yeah. Certainly, if I hear like a bit of music from a movie that I loved when I was 7 or something like that, automatically I'm 7 again. And and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I would love to be 7 again, carefree, not paying mortgage. It'd be amazing.
Do you remember this? Like dun 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 dun.
I do, but I can't put my finger on it.
I think it's Rainbow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Zippy. Is it Zippy?
Zippy and George,
and
I think, as well. Yeah. Zippy. They were classic, man. They were classic.
Well, that was like before our time, though.
Yeah, that was like 70s.
Yeah, man. You only have to look at what they're wearing. Skivvies and flares.
Skivvies, nice, yeah. What about that? Brung, brung, ba-da-da-da-da-da-dung, bung, da-dung, da-dung,
Okay, hit me with that one. What's that one?
Play School.
Oh, yeah, God.
Remember?
Yes.
Open the door, brung, brung. Yeah. Maybe that was in New Zealand, but that was the UK as well, right?
I think everyone had its own form of it.
Yeah, they did, eh?
Yeah.
They definitely did.
Yeah. It's not like Sesame Street, which is one Sesame Street.
Yeah, Sesame Street was amazing too.
I tell you what I was trying to find the other day. I was trying to find it for my daughter was Postman Pat, but the original Postman Pat.
Yeah, the old school.
And Thomas the Tank Engine. They've changed the theme. It's not even Ringo Starr anymore.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's not as good. It's not as good.
No, wouldn't be. Yeah. Wouldn't be as good.
Well, to me, it's not.
Yeah.
So to kids now, it's probably like amazing. And maybe when they look back in 20 years' time, they go, no, the other one's too low. It's horrible. I remember this one, you know.
Yeah, you get sentimental listening to those as well. Like, Denver, the last dinosaur.
Yeah. So that makes me sentimental.
Yeah, there are heaps of classic
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Heroes in a House. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, maybe we could talk about those ones another day, eh?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, the TV themes.
Cool. I think that's pretty much us, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we've got time for.
So I guess we'll catch up with another topic next time around.
Yeah, thanks for listening. And
thank you very much.
Tune in again.
Hope you weren't bored to death.